Hi everyone! I'm working on another Resin Geode, and I think I'll split this into separate parts so these videos don't get too long for you. I like to tape off the back of my board just in case any resin sneaks through my border at the top. So you can see me doing that here. I've already prepped my MDF board with polyacrylic and I've already laid out my magic sculpt lines. If you want to know more about the magic sculpt process, I'll put a video link up above and that'll give you a better idea of how I go about that. I just thought I'd skip that step in this one since I've already shown that in several other videos. And as you know, if you've seen any of my other videos, I like to paint with acrylic paints just to give myself an idea of how I might like to lay down my resin later. And here you see me taping off the edges, and I just keep the tape really taut, and then I use a tongue depressor to rub over the tape, and this creates a great seal so that my resin does not leak and it builds up on the board. I love to mix and match my pigments to create the color that I want. So you'll see that I'm using a few different mica powders in my art resin, and that would be Black Diamond, Pearl X, and Soap Shop brand. And I'll put all the links to the products I use in the description below if you're interested. After I have my resin mixed really good with the pigment, I go ahead and lay it out along the board in all of the sections where I want this color. And then I'll heat it with my torch and begin spreading it around with a popsicle stick just to help the resin get to the areas where I want it, pushing it up under the clay ridge. And art resin does self-level, but I like to help it along by moving it around the board to the areas that I want it. In this piece, I like to take my base color and just keep adding different pigments to it to create different shades of that color. And so what I've done here is I've taken Pearl X Magenta and added it to that original mix, and that's what I'm using to fill in my next section. So I don't generally like to just stick with one color in my sections, even though I'll be covering up some of them with glitters and glasses and crystals, because I like to get the special effects you get when you blend different mica powders and pigments. And so I'm taking a little bit of clear resin and I'm mixing in some lighter colors, and again combining my pigments with Black Diamond, with the Soap Shop, and maybe a little Pearl X in there too. And this way I can blend it into those sections, heat it up, and it'll create some interesting effects and interest to give the piece a little more pop and make it a little more fun. It's really a combination of blending colors and using heat that gives you that lacing and those cells and those really cool, interesting effects in your resin. Moving along, I decided to add some of the res to my already mixed pigment from that last blending color. And I go ahead and spread it out along my board just as I did before in all of the sections where I want that color. Then I heat it up and I use a popsicle stick to spread it around the board, just helping it out because again I only have about a 45-minute to 1 hour working time, which is actually very generous and one of the reasons I love working with art resin. Now comes the fun part where I start adding my glitters, and I just dump quite a bit of glitter into my already mixed pigment, and then I will add it in along the edge of the resin so it blends in kind of a gradient fashion. And you can see here how adding that thick resin with the glitter in it, it pushes your other resin and creates a line to give you more detail and more interest in the piece. And once I get a few sections done and my resin is starting to set up a little bit, this is my favorite part where I start adding my crushed glass, my glitters, my even my crystals. And I usually start with my bigger pieces and work my way down to my tiniest pieces like my glitters. And then when I'm done with that, I will see where I'd like to place my crystals and those extra special elements in my resin. And while I've been working the board, I had some extra resin sitting along the side, curing and thickening up. And that's what I'm doing now, is I'm placing the extra thick resin along the ridges of my clay line. So I think that in order to keep these videos short, I will just stop at this point. And what I do is I let this cure for a couple hours. I pull my tape off and then I let it cure overnight before moving on to my next sections. So stay tuned for part 2, where I'll finish the next 2 sections, adding a lot more fun and crystals. And again, thank you for watching my videos. I'm still new at this, I'm still learning, and your comments and your subscribes really help out a lot.